This is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Nun Gimel Agutamayid, and we're holding on Nun Beis Amid Beis, the 3 lines into the wide lines on the bottom. Tanu Rabbanan. We begin today with a little bit of a, I guess we could call it a story. Lachar Petira Shel Rameir. After the Petira, after Rameir was nifter, Amar Lahem Rav Yehuda LaTalmidav. Rav Yehuda told his Talmidim al Yikonsil Talmidi Rameir Lekan, do not allow the Talmidim Rameir enter into my base medrash mimnei she'kana toradim him, because they are mikanter, they fight. Maknitin, Rashi says, they provoke. Says the Gemara of Lolam Tarei Bayim, and they're not going to be coming to learn Torah. Ella, so why are they going to come? Likavcheni ba'alach bayim. They're coming to try to test me, try to cham me in Allah. But what happened? Dochak sumches v'nichnas. Sumches, a Talmud of Rameir pushed and got in. Amar lahem. And Sumches says to them, Kach shanali Rameir, such Rameir taught. Hamekadesh bechelkoi. Bein kachay kachay, bein kachay kalim. Loi kidesh. Rameir taught, whether you're kachi kalim, whether you're kachi kachim, like kidesh, of course, this is in the Mishnah. And we know that Rav Yehuda argues. So here is Sumches, a Talmud of Rameir, saying over the din of Rameir exactly what Rav Yehuda did not want to happen. What happens? Cause Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda gets angry. And of course, we always have to remember, whenever we see that we have a Rebbe, we have a Rav Yehuda getting angry, it doesn't mean he blew it. It means he had to show anger to his Talmidim. Aleim, because on his Talmidim, Amr Lahem, Lokacha Marti Lachem. Did I not tell you, Al Yikotzu to mi Talmidim Rameir Lekan? V'neshek Antaranim Lolam Terei Bayim? Elo Lekavchenim Ba'alach Zim Bayim? And now, finally, after Rav Yehuda loses it on the Talmidim, he responds why he argues on Rameir. Ch'isha Ba'azara Minayin. How can a woman come into the Azara? You're telling me she's being mekadesh with kachay kachim. Kachay kachim are not allowed to leave the Azara. And a woman is not allowed to go into the Azara. So says Rav Yehuda, that's why I disagree. Amar Rav Yosi. So Rav Yosi says, Yomru, should they say, Meir Shachav, Yehuda Kiyes, and Yosi Shasak? Should they say that Rameir was nifter? Rav Yehuda got angry, and Rav Yosi is quiet. But divrei Torah, mate alel, what's going to be with the Torah? And now Rav Yosi responds, explaining the sheet of Rameir. What do you mean? She doesn't have to come to the Hazara. Her father will come to the Hazara and accept Kiddushin for his daughter. Or she can make her own shliach to accept Kiddushin in the Hazara. And what if Lamaisa, she pushes her way in? What if a woman walks into the Hazara? So you could also have 3 ways where the case could happen. And says Rav Yosi, that's why Rameir held Lamaisa, you could be mekadesh with kachay kachim, and that's how the story concludes for now. Says the Gemara, Tani, we learned in a brayso 4 lines from the bottom. Rav Yehuda Omer mekudash, Rav Yosi Omer eino mekudash. Chmach like is Rameir and Rav Yosi, Rav Yehuda and Rav Yosi, excuse me, if you're mekadesh with a carbon. Amr Rav Yochanan Shnei Mikrach Darshu. In reality, they're both learning the same pasuk. Says the Torah of Zayilacham Mikdash, Zayilacham Mikadosh HaKadoshim Min Ha'ish. Says the Torah, the Shvi for you for Kadosh Kashim from the fire. Rav Yehuda Savar Lacha, Kadosh Kashim is for you. Ulakol Sarchacha. And that's why, if you're Mekadesh with a carbon, Rav Yehuda held Mikudashas. And when you remind yourself that Rav Yehuda, the Mishnah said, only B'Shaygeg, it did not work. But B'Mezid, Rav Yehuda agreed, excuse me, incorrect. Rav Yehuda did not weigh in on Kachim in the Mishnah. Rav Yosi Savar Keish, Ma'ish La'achila Afu Nami La'achila, says Rav Yosi, only you can be Mekadesh with something which is for Achila, meaning that the Kayin can only use Karbanos for Achila purposes and not for any other purpose, meaning he cannot be Mekadesh an Isha with it. Amar Rav Yochanan, Says Rav Yochanan as we turn over to Nun Gimel Amud Aleph. Nimnu vegamru. They took account and they concluded this is how they would decide the dinim in the Beis Medrash. And what do they decide? Amakadesh bechelkoi. Fakayin is mekadesh nisha with his portion. Bein kachei kachim, bein kachei kalim, like Kidesh. But the Rav Omer Adaini machlekes, says Rav, it's still a machlekes. Let's just look at the top Rashi as Rashi explains. What does it mean? Nimnu v'garmu leminyan v'rabu ha'imrim eina mekudashes. Ubatzlu amuatim. There were more people that said eina mekudashes. And therefore those who held mekudashes are mevatel v'chazur ben v'garmu lahem eina mekudashes. Therefore everyone was bound by the halacha that einai mekudashes. Amar Abaye kavasei Rav Yochanan mistaver. Says Abaye, it's most mistaver like the shita of Rav Yochanan. Says the Gemara. What does it mean like the shita of Rav Yochanan? Like we just said, that it's nimnu v'gamru, einoi mikudashes, and Rav Yehuda ultimately has to fold and agree. Why is that most mistavra? Titania, 4 lines down in Gilman Aleph. How do we know that the Kohanim are not allowed to divide and one take a mincha instead of other karbanos? Says the pasuk, all the mincha which are baked in an oven. I would think you would think that you cannot. I'll take one mincha, and you'll take some other carbon of an animal. Why would I think that? I would think that because Lamaisa, one is a more dal, more poor carbon, and one is a more animal, wealthy carbon, we'll call it. So you would think that you can't swap them. But maybe when it comes to a bird carbon, which is also a form of carbon dal, also a form of a poor person's carbon, so maybe then, yes, you could swap a mincha for a knife. Again, we're talking about the koyahanim that are dividing it up to eat the carbon. Why? Because the maisa does work. You're able, whenever you have to bring a carbon oif, you could substitute it with a carbon mincha. Talmud Leimar says the Torah, anything that is made in a pan shall belong to the children of Aaron, showing that you can't swap it. Continues the Raisa. You think you cannot swap menachos for oifos shalalu minei damim valalu minei kumachim, because these have dam and these have flour. What about a bird for an animal with bow shalalu valalu minei damim? They're both animals. They're both not animals. One's a bird, but they're both animal type offerings that have dam. Talmud says the pasuk al macheves. Then no, it has to be on the shallow pan, which teaches us that you're not able to swap them at all. Even a carbon oif for a carbon regular carbon animal behema. The oif is shechted with the yad. The oif is shechted with the, whereas the other karbanos are shechted with a kli. Again, what's the yad? The yad is malika, that the kohen would take his thumb, he would grow out the nail of the thumb, and he would shech the bird with his fingernail. So one is shechted with a finger, one is shechted with a kli. So I would think that's why they can't swap. He's boiled one mincha for the next shalalu. They both are done with kimitza, 3 fingers worth. Therefore you can't even swap that. Continues the Brisa, I would think you cannot swap a shallow pan mincha for a deep pan mincha. Different types of carbon minchas were baked different ways. Why? One makes soft dough, one makes brittle, more matzah type dough. But what? I would think you could. keneged macheves u'marcheshes keneged marcheshes. Why? Because they're the same type of bread. Either they're both soft or they're both hard. Talmud Leimar, says the pasuk. V'charava l'chol b'nei Aaron tiyeh. Continues the brayso. Yachle yechalku b'kachei kachim. Ava yechalku b'kachei kalim. On the first wide line, I would think only kachei kachim can you not divide, but the kachei kalim you could. Talmud Leimar ish ki achiv, says the pasuk. V'samach lei im al taida kashem shein chalkim b'kachei kachim. Therefore, from the smichos, from the fact that the Torah puts the two of them together, we learn just like kashem shein chalkim b'kachei kachim kachin chalkim b'kachei kalim. So too, you cannot split up even kachei kalim. Continues the brayso. Ish, says the pasuk, it has to do with the man. Ish chalik afilu balmum. A man can share a carbon with the other kayanim. Afilu balmum, even if he, the kayin, is a balmum. However, vein akatan chalik vafilu itam. If a katan is even pure, no mumim, he's still not allowed to share his karbanos with other people. So after this whole long and lengthy brayso, says the Gemara Stam Sifra Mani, who is the Stam Sifra, which is the previous brayso. Says Gemara Rav Yehuda, V'okamar, and we saw in the previous brayso, the last way, Ten Chaluka Klal. So Shema Mina proves the Gemara that clearly Rav Yehuda pulled back. Again, this goes all the way back at the top of the Amud. Rav Yochanan taught us Nimnu Ve'Gamru, that everyone agrees Einai Mikudashes, which meant that even Rav Yehuda's masking in a Mikudashes. After an incredibly long brayso, the Gemara proves from the fact that there's no Dir Chalukah, that means you can't use the carbon for your own purposes at all. That's the raya that Rav Yehuda is chayzer, and you cannot be Mekadesh an Isha with a carbon. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rava, Ukrav Miloi Tanya. You just brought along a lengthy brayso proving Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan said, Rav Yehuda's chayzer, and Ozeina Mekudashes. Says Rava, slow down. But I can prove you Rav. Who's Rav? Rav held that Rav Yehuda was not chayzer. How? Vatanya Hatznuim Ma'ishchan Asideim Vagargonim Cholkim, says in the brayso, when they came to dividing up the lechem upon him weekly, the Tzenuim, what happened? Those who didn't want to fight, would be Ma'ishach Yadeim, they would pull back and they would say they don't want Vagargonim Cholkim. And the Gargonim, those who the gluttonous, literally Koyanim, they would grab and they would take. But what would they do? They would trade and they would give money to get more parts of the kach of the lechem upon him. Because taking a teeny little bit's not going to satiate you, and the halacha of the lechem upon him is you have to eat it l'saiva. So says the brayso, the gargonim, what would they do? They would grab and then they would swap and they would trade. So says the Gemara, so what do we see? We see clearly that you could trade kachim. Says Gemara, no, my cholkim, what does it mean? They would divide chaytvim. It just meant they would grab Keditani Seifa. As the end of that brayso, there was a story with someone that grabbed his portion and his friend's portion. And what happened? Ben Chamson, they called him a Ben Chamson. Ad Yom Maisai. So doesn't mean they actually divided. Amar Rav Shila, my kara concludes. Rav Shila, what is the pasuk that Ben Chamson comes from? Elakai Palteni Miad Rasha Mikaf Me'avel V'Chaimitz. Rab Amar Me'achal Lamdu Heitiv Dirshu Mishmar Ashrei Chamutz. We see this word chametz, this word connoting one who grabs, one who forces other people to give. So that's the raya to Rav, that Rav Yochanan was not chayzer. So we have a Rav Yehuda, excuse me. We have a raya to Rav Yochanan, Rav Yehuda was chayzer. We have a raya to Rav, that Rav Yehuda was not chayzer. Now 10 lines in the bottom of the Gimel and Aleph. First one line is Meiser Sheni. We continue quoting the Mishnah. The second din in the Mishnah was one Meiser Sheni beim Mishagim beim Meiser lo Kiddush divrei Rabbi Meir. Whereas Rav Yehuda Eimer Shoygeg like Kiddush, but Meiser Kiddush. Says the Gemara, Minani Miliver, do we know this from? Amar Rav Acha Brei Rava Mishmei de Gemara. They had a Messiah. What is the Messiah? I apologize that our video is freezing. Chol Meiser Aretz Mizer Aretz Mi Bria Eitz Lashem Hu. Says the Basik. Chol Meiser Aretz. All the Meiser, the tips of the land. Mizer Aretz, and the grains of the lands. Mi Bria Aretz, and the fruit of the tree. Lashem Hu, it is Tashem. Kodesh Lashem, it is holy Tashem. And now we darshin. Lashem Hu, v'loi l'kadish ba'yisha. It's only for Hashem. And you can't marry a woman with it. That's the raya that you're not able to use Meiser Sheini to marry someone with. Harei Chumas Meiser Dichsev. What does it say about Chumas Meiser? Says the boss that came to Rimugamatem, Chumas Hashem. Utanan, and we darshin in a Mishnah this boss. Mekadish b'Chuma Mikudeshes. So asks the Gemara, we see that by Chuma we darshin the pasuk differently. Answers the Gemara, looks at La Hashem. It doesn't say La Hashem, which it does say by Meiser Sheni. So Meiser Sheni you can't use for yourself, but Chuma, but Meiser Sheni you cannot use for yourself, even though Chuma's Meiser you could. Continues the Gemara, what do you mean? And even though it says Chala is La Hashem, Utananu went to the Mishnah Mekadesh with Chumas Mikudashes. If you Mekadesh it works. Says where the Gemara looks at Beit Kodesh. Ay varishvi is chseve yovel Kodesh yelochem. And yeah, we learned to Tanana Mekadesh with Beit Rishvi is Mikudashes. Looks at Beit Hashem. So either it's Lashem or it's Lachem. I very truma the chsev Kodesh Yisrael Lashem Reishes Tuvua Asai. And yeah, we learned by Truma Tanana Mekadesh with Truma Mikudashes. Says the Gemara, oh, be Israel. When the pasuk there says that it's Kodesh, doesn't refer to the Truma. Kodesh Yisrael Hashem. It means that Klal Yisrael are Kodesh. Says the Gemara as we turn over to Nun Gimel and Beis, why do you need a pasuk to teach you that? Excuse me. But from the pasuk itself, you should be able to learn as well that the Truma as well is Kodesh. And therefore, why are you allowed to Mekadesh with the Truma? Answers of the Gemara on the top line of Nun Gimel and Beis. Tergama Ravin Saba Kamei Derav Amar Kra V'hu. When it comes to Truma, Paviyasa Yehei, and that is the reason why Meiser Sheni. Excuse me. We'll go back and we're saying now the reason why Meiser Sheni is Paviyasa Yehei, a new drasha teaching us that Meiser Sheni you cannot be Mekadesh and Isha from it, as it says Paviyasa Yehei. We continue 3 lines down and give them a base, quoting the end of the Mishnah. Oh, Behakdesh b'mezid kidesh b'shagi like kidesh v'rameir. Rav Yehuda imer b'shagi kidesh b'mezid like kidesh. Am Rav Yaakov shmas mina de Rav Yochanan tarati. We can learn from Rav Yochanan 2 items. Shigas meisid Rav Yehuda. One about the din of the shagig of Rav Yehuda. And Shigas Hektish, the Rameir, and the Shagis of Hektish Rameir. Shneim, in both of these cases, Shagig of Meiser Rav Yehuda, Shagig of Hektish Rameir, Ein Isha Miskadeshes Bahem. Why not? Chadal Feshini Shoytzev, Chadal Feshein, Shneim Roitzim. By one of them, the reason is because the woman doesn't want to get married with the item. By one of them, it's because they both don't want to. And in classical Gemara says Rav Yaakov, I know that there are these 2 dinim that exist, I just don't remember which is which. So continues the Gemara to try to figure it out. Amar Rav Yirmiyah 10 lines down, Nechse Yanan. Meiser, when it comes to Meiser, Ihu Lo Nichala. She's not happy with getting Meiser. Why? Misham Tircha. De Orcha. The reason is because you have to travel with Meiser Shein and eat in Yerushalayim. That's why she doesn't want to get it. Whereas Ihu, he is Nichalei, why the Nikni Itzah? But he's still happy to utilize the Meiser Sheni for such a purpose. Because the Maisa, he's getting married with it. Ela Hektish, the Nikni Itzah Memela. Ela Hektish, Tervayu Loi Nichlu, they're both not happy. Why? Tenaschal Hektish Al Yodayu. Because what happens when you use Hektish for a non-Hektish purpose? Use Hektish to marry a woman. The hektish is mechulal, the hektish is naschel, it is deconsecrated, and that's an aveira. So even though it's going to work, they're both not happy. So says Rav Yaakov in one of these statements, as Rav Yirmiyah is now explaining, comes to Meiser Sheni, she is not happy. When it comes to Hektish, they are both not happy. For Rav Yaakov, no, the opposite. Mila Yika Lemeimar Meiser, when it comes to Meiser Ihu, La Ihi La Nichala, Misham Tircha Dorcha. And Ihu, he as well is La Nichale. Why? Misham Onsa Dorcha. He's not happy. Why? Because the Meiser Sheni might be lost on the way. So even though he's getting married in the process, but doesn't want to lose his Meiser Sheni. Ela Hektish, when it comes to Hektish, Bish, so my understanding, Ihu La Nichla, then Ascha Hektish Al Yada. She's not happy with being married via Hektish. Why? Because Hektish is Mechulal, is deconsecrated through her. Ela Ihu, he, Mila Nichalei, Dinigni Itza, Memela. It's true that it's going to be Mechalel. But Lamaisa, he's still happy that the Hektish, that he gets married in the way. And therefore maybe that's where Rameir held, where one, they're both not happy, one, they are both yes happy. And that is how the Gemara is explaining how potentially the statement of Rav Yaakov could fit in the dinim of the Mishnah. And finally, Bai Minei Rav Amir Rav Chisda, Isha ein miskadeshes b'ma'is. Mahu. Isha ein miskadeshes, According to Rameir, a woman is not miskadeshes, b'shayig, as Rameir taught us with Hektish. Ma'is ma'u shetzel l'chulin. What's the status, according to Rameir, with the cash? Amar le isha ein miskadeshes. Ma chiyatzu. So Chisda said, since she's not married, then what's your shayla where the money goes? Of course it goes nowhere. It remains Hektish because she's not married. Says the Gemara, Ma chiyatzu l'chulin, of course would not go le'chulin. But what is the status in the case of a mecher? If you took an item and you by accident bought something with Hektish, it's also not a kinyan. Esvei asks Mar, really? What is this machlekes if a chamini utilizes an item of Hektish? Aval de kule alma, they all hold. If they spend it, l'maisis over me'ilah. So says the Gemara, if they're over me'ilah, then certainly what should happen? The kinyan should work if someone buys something by accident with money of Hektish. Answers the Gemara, Rameir ledvar de Rav Yehuda kamar. Rameir is really talking to Rav Yehuda. I hold really if you spend it, there's no me'ilah. Eladidach, where Rameir is telling Rav Yehuda, according to you, you should at least be moed to me the chamini. And on that, Rav Yehuda responds, no, V'amrei Eloi, Kishol, Chani. We'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from here in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.